y'all. What's up? Welcome back to another episode of Richmond Forest Finest, the podcast. And we have, at this point, we didn't just call each other co-hosts at this point because this is like time number 5. But we are back with Miss Michelle Williams. And you just dropped some fire on HISD and your favorite principal. Before we get into that, let's talk about, because we have not revisited from the termination hearing with TEA, the decision of TEA, the findings of TEA, and then still going through the board meeting with HISD getting terminated. So we're not going to do a whole background, because if they following it, and we know they've been following your story, they already know. So give us a little rundown about that. So the moment that you found out about the board upholding determination, even after TEA's decision, what point did you already know that this legal action is coming? What's going on? Talk to us.
So, this is not my first termination. So, I myself and my attorney, when they scheduled me before the board of managers, which did not happen in the first case, there was very good suspicion that they were going to terminate my contract. So it was an expectation. What I expected to happen was that we will win at the hearing level, which we did, and we had a really good hearing officer. And then to be terminated at the board, because it's no secret, Mike Miles does not like me, and he doesn't care about following law, and it's not his money that he's messing with. It's the taxpayers' money that he's messing with and having to pay out these lawsuits. So even with the board of managers, the district still has to defend them through those Ellen Spalding and her $500 an hour billing, because I know in one of the other school districts, her negotiated rate is $400 an hour, and that district is like the northeast side of Houston ISD. That's how small it is.
That's crazy.
And they're bleeding legal fees. So I didn't expect anything else from him, because he doesn't care about anybody but himself.
So now that we have this fire, and this fire is that you have filed a state appeal and a federal lawsuit against HISD. Break that down for us, because what are you accusing HISD of, and then what made this cross from an employment issue to a civil rights issue?
So the state appeal is still under my current attorney, who has been representing me since 2024, Gianna Ortiz. So she filed the state appeal, which appeals the board of managers' action to overturn that, and ask the commissioner to overturn that action. Then on the federal side, it turned into a civil rights matter, because we're talking about violations for First Amendment, violation for due process, violation of breach of contract, which HISD has a policy of not retaliating against its employees when a protected activity takes place, which I can speak at the board meeting on matters of public concern, which I was, which the students and the special education issues were a matter of public concern. One thing that I want to note is, if you've ever seen me speak at a board meeting, I never introduce myself as a HISD teacher. I speak in my capacity as the president of the Houston Education Association, which, when they took action against me and retaliated, they were retaliating against my right to associate, just a lot of different things. So there's like 5 different constitutional violations that we are asserting in that complaint.
So let's talk for the people, and we've kind of gone over this a little bit before. What does retaliation look like in real time, not just theory and not just feelings? Because I know a lot of times teachers are feeling like, oh, my principal retaliated against me because I came to work late and I complained, or I raised my hand and asked a question in a faculty meeting. And so they feel like things are retaliatory. But let's talk about what retaliation looks like in real time and not just when it's your feelings.
So for me, and I can give you an example of me, and I'll give you one of the members that I was representing in a level one grievance. So for me, I spoke at the board meeting on August 14th. This is all out in the press. August 14th. On August 15th, Daniel Gerard, the chief of the North Division, visited my classroom. Now, I had retaliation done against me in the first non-renewal hearing. Remember Dr. Laura Stout?
Yeah.
She
Oh,
did the same thing. First Amendment. Mike Miles has already said that he did not like us being on social media because we never had anything nice to say about him. But that has nothing to do with our First Amendment right, which is freedom to associate, which that was under our union handle, and freedom of speech. I didn't say anything to him that he didn't say to me. He was disrespectful. I wasn't disrespectful. I posted the email that I sent him publicly. So since he made a public ass, I made a public acceptance. So that's what took place. He did not like that. So he decided to send Dr. Stout down to my classroom. Same thing Daniel Gerard did. Same exact thing. And I knew that what was about to happen because it had happened before. So that's one instance. The protected activity was speaking at the board meeting. The retaliation was him coming down to my classroom, surveillance, and then all of a sudden these memos happen.
Yeah.
So that's retaliation. In my member's case is he wanted to file, well, he had gotten written up because they in Houston ISD, they make them write do all this extra paperwork.
Yeah.
Well, on the law is very clear about paper reduction and what teachers they have to do or required to do. So he was not doing it. So he got written up. I told him, I said, hey, send me the write up and I'm going to file the complaint. But even before I filed the complaint, I reached out to the then current principal because she's no longer there and asked her all of these things about the memo. Were they consistent with what the policy and law state? And really it's not policy, it's law because it came down from the state. She never will respond. So I moved ahead with the level one. We won the level one. But I filed on March 3rd. On March 4th, guess who shows up in his classroom? Daniel Gerard. So knowing that what he's already done, because he did it to me and another member, now he was doing it to this teacher. So I filed a grievance to keep him out of the members' classroom and asked for an investigation because this was the third teacher that had this surveillance. And it's the same MO. They're not even that intelligent enough to create at least 3 different plays to retaliate against anyone.
Wow. So now let's talk about the bomb that just dropped. So you filed this federal lawsuit, and you didn't just file against the district. You named specific individuals, a specific individual, one of my favorite people ever, and I think that I am one of his favorite people. As I sat in, let me go back a little bit before we talk about that because I have to tell the world this because we never got to discuss this. I attended your hearing, the last hearing. I took off work and I was up in that thing, okay? And when I walked in the room, you could have swore that man saw a ghost. I walked to that room and he was like, not this bitch. I know this bitch. And I'm looking at him. I'm literally sitting across the table from him at the hearing, and I'm seeing him get flustered when he's asked questions. I'm seeing him get tongue tied. I'm seeing him, kind of be disrespectful when it's your turn to testify. Like, oh, he's just so busy typing on his computer and not even looking at you, not even whatever. And I think I got on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, and I made a comment about how disrespectful he was being while you were testifying and how he was just diddling dallying on that computer. And I said, well, I hope he applying for jobs, because after your attorney put belt to ass on him, I know he was going to be out of there. So I said, well, he saw this ass whooping. He felt it. I'm looking at it, and I know he felt it. So I hope he on Indeed applying for jobs right now. But let's talk about that. So you named individuals in your lawsuit. So let's talk about this. How do we even get to the federal lawsuit and talk about whose name's in it?
So the federal lawsuit happened because HISD has a pattern of practice of retaliation and violating our constitutional rights, which is federal law. Mr. Hurd was a participant in that. And I have said before, Mr. Hurd was not somebody I was gunning for. As a matter of fact, I didn't want the fight with Houston ISD. I asked for a transfer over 5 times. Right. And I told him point blank, I said, hey, you seem like a nice guy. You need to get me off your campus. Because what I do know is the West Division, they no longer exist after that first hearing. And I can tell you now, as I sit here, that North Division, they're gone too. Yeah. So all the people that were involved in this termination, the last person got terminated. And that was the division chief.
And we went to take the people back, because I don't know what episode it was on. They can go back to the YouTube and look at all the episodes that you've been on. But when you first got to this campus, and there was a sudden switch in principles, like as soon as you got there. And I remember you talking about that with us and telling us, hey, when Mr. Hurd got on your campus, and you're like, hey, this ain't what you want. This is not going to be personal, but if you don't get me off of here, it's going to be ugly. And he was kind of cocky and arrogant with the, nah, you going to do what I tell you to do. And so here we are. But I remember that when we had this conversation, a lot of people think that just because they're following orders from upper admin, from their higher ups, that they are protected when it comes to things like retaliation. So I want to talk about that, because I don't think a lot of administrators realize when it comes to something as serious as retaliation, how they can be held personally liable.
Yeah, they can. And it's unfortunate, because they think that the district is going to go to bat for them, and they're not. So in the complaint, it says individually and in their official capacity. So the suit is against them as an individual and as the principal or administrator of that campus. So if you're getting sued individually, you're on the hook for your own counsel. The district is only going to protect you or protect its entity in your official capacity.
So I want to stay here for just a second, because I think this is where a lot of people really need to pay attention. There are administrators that are carrying out directives from central office every single day, thinking that they are just doing their job. So what does it mean when legally you say an individual can be named?
So when there's a pattern of practice, what they're saying is that the district has a habit of doing these things and it's system wide. So individuals they can make the decision not to be a part of the illegal activity. But if you choose to participate, like Mr. Hurd was very well aware of what was taking place. You know why he was aware of it? Because I told him. I told him. So he knew that they were coming after me. He decided to make the decision to participate. And I'm going to tell you the story about Mr. Brantley, who was in the first hearing and how different they were. Mr. Brantley wanted no parts of it, period. And so when they forced him to to issue memos, but you know what he said? He said, "I'm being directed to issue these memos."
Okay, smart.
Because you know why? He had already retained counsel.
So,
and people didn't know that.
They didn't know that. So let's talk about administrators being personally responsible for retaliation. And now you're saying that the district is not going to back him. He has to go get his own attorney out of his pocket because. But this takes me back to, again, being a part of your hearing, right? And the whole argument was, yes, you were doing the right thing by doing right by students, right? But you were not following directives. And so I remember the argument continued to go back and forth between Ellen Spalding, the district who was representing the district, and not wanting to stay on the fact that, hey, you were doing right by kids. She kept leaning on the fact that, were you given a directive? Are you supposed to follow the orders of your boss? And so they gave all kind of whack examples of, if you're speeding and your boss tells you to get to work, but the speed limit says 30 and you're doing 40, but you're wrong. And so going back to Mr. Hurd, he's being held personally liable even though he was doing his job and following a directive. So that seems like, hell, that's unfair, just like we're talking about it being unfair in your situation.
Well, it's unlawful. And he knew that. And the difference between he and I is that I knew that their directives were unlawful and I refused to follow them. He had the same opportunity to say no.
Wow.
And that's to all the administrators. And I keep telling them, I said, you all gonna keep getting caught up. And I'm not the one to play with. I'm not her. Because I know the law and I know my rights. And at the end of the day, they're going to be held accountable. Yeah. That's what the name of the game is, accountability. And I'm taking no prisoners. And, a lot of people may say, well, she's going after Black people and this, that. I don't care because Black principals are the ones who are willingly doing this. Yeah. And I don't have a problem saying that publicly because it was hard at first going after them. Yeah. But they were going after my members. They were going after me. So if you shooting at me, I'm going to shoot back.
Not to shoot back. So I think having administrators understanding that there is a line between doing your job and violating somebody's rights. So what would you say to an assistant principal or a principal who feels that pressure to fall in line with the Mike Miles or Mike Miles regime?
They need to know the law, which they don't. They don't know anything. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, and this is going to sound callous, but they act like one of the criteria for being an administrator is not to know anything and to follow blindly and be a part of this dumb club. But you don't know the law, and then you're listening to somebody who doesn't care about breaking the law.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, Dr. Stout, when she followed Mike Miles's orders, Dr. Stout had never once had a conversation with me. Wow. Yet she was the one who had to leave. So at the end of the day, you have to do what's right. You have to follow the law because at the end of the day, teachers are going to assert their rights for the most part. And as we go into these hostile takeovers, there are still laws and takeovers. I have proven that. And these principals drink the Kool-Aid and don't understand that you do not have the power. You are a pawn in a game. And if you choose to violate these teachers and employees' rights, you are choosing to get sued in court.
You are. So if somebody is instructed to do something that they know is wrong, what is the risk to them personally? So when you say I'm coming after him individually, I'm coming after him personally, what is the risk to not just Mr. Hurd, but anybody that's in Mr. Hurd's position as well?
So it's punitive damages. That's what we're asking for. When we talk about punitive, we're talking about monetary.
Yeah.
Because they did something and I had to fight them and they damaged my reputation.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have reputational damage and they did it intentionally when they knew it was wrong. So that's what I'm looking at. Yes, I'm on the end of my career, but that's neither here nor there.
Right.
They violated my rights in the process and they knew about it. Because you know how many grievance hearings that I have sat in since the takeover? It's over 17 now. Gianna and I have filed 4 grievances together.
Mm-hmm.
And for each grievance, as a matter of fact, we have a grievance hearing Thursday for 2 of them.
Yeah.
So for 2 of the grievances, that's 6 sittings together with her, she and I. Level 1, 2, and 3. That's 6 right there. And then the other 2, we have had 4. That's 10 times.
Mm-hmm.
So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
These people are well aware of the complaint and what we were asserting.
Yeah.
And they just didn't care.
I want to talk about the paper trail and the documentation, but before I get there, you said something right now that triggered a memory going back to your hearing, and I want to give a shout out to Miss Jessica Naiman. We talked about Jessica Naiman the last podcast, and she was the chief. What was her chief human resource officer
She was.
in Mike Miles' regime, and then all of a sudden one day she just wasn't anymore. And this was shortly after one of the grievances that you filed and won with TA, or TA sided with you on one of the grievances that you filed against them for the student complaints. And she came to your hearing and she testified on your behalf. And I want to say she was so, when I say, and I mean this as a term of endearment, Miss Naiman, that's a bad bitch. And I mean that, and I gotta say respectfully, I have to add respectfully on there, because she walked in that room so poised and so confident, and it was like battle of the bitches, because it was Ellen Spalding, who's an attorney, and then you have Jessica Naiman, who's also an attorney, and she knew exactly how to answer the questions. And I personally feel like, although all of the testimony was good, what put the nail in the coffin for HISD was her testimony, and her specifically saying they were instructed, directed by Mike Miles, not to talk to you. All right? And when she said that, I swear in that room you could have heard a rat piss on top, because it was like, whoa, did she say that? And even your attorney, Jonna, was like, hold on, run it back. Let me. And Jessica Naiman was like, I said it. Like, you were instructed. It was just that, but it was in such a professional, legal jargon type way. Like, she knew how to answer Ellen Spalding's questions, and Ellen Spalding was no match for Jessica Naiman, and Jessica Naiman was not even there in her capacity as an attorney. She's just there as a former chief of HR, talking on your behalf. And I was sitting there and writing in my little notebook, and I was like, she would mop the floor with this lady if this were duo in court. If this were the two of them going back and forth as opposing counsel, she would wipe the floor with her. She could not touch her. So we got to give a shout out to Miss Jessica Naiman, because her testimony was everything in your hearing.
I am forever indebted to her. Yeah. And people don't know, I liked Jessica Naiman when I first met her. And I hate to say, I didn't want to like her, but I just had to. And the funny thing about it is, even though, and I'm saying this publicly, even though Mike Miles instructed them not to talk to me, Jessica Naiman always spoke to me. Hi, Michelle. Always. And it always stuck with me because she would wave at me in the auditorium in the boardroom. And I asked the nurse, I said, is she waving at me? She said she got to. She ain't waving at me. Like, it was bizarre.
Yeah.
But now it makes sense because it was a way for her to honor who she is.
She was. And rebelling against him. And even as we're in the HISD, what you call it, the Hattie to the maid, the Hattie maid, you call it all kind of names, but we're in the district building, the headquarters for the district office, and this is where the hearing is taking place. And this is shortly after, not too long after, Jessica Naaman was relieved of her duty. So for her to walk back in that building to testify on your behalf, to me felt like one final F you to Mike Johnson. Because I said, I can only imagine him sitting somewhere in the top office looking at the cameras, watching her walk in, knowing that she's getting ready to testify for you and not him.
Yeah, she
like, yes, I've been under his control for so long, but I'm no longer under his control, and I'm gonna speak my truth. And it was just, her testimony was just everything, man. Like, so shout out to Jessica Naaman. But let's go back to helping the audience out, because you and I talk often, and we always say how advocacy is so exhausting, because as much as we talk, as much as both of us use our platforms to inform and try to educate people, they don't listen. They do not listen. And I'm going to talk about documentation, and I'm going to ask you what documentation mattered most in your case. But I have to tell the audience too, again, sitting in your trial, I wish I had a binder here so I can give them an example of the thick binder that you had that was full of receipts. And everybody had a copy of their binder. And so when Gianna, your attorney, referenced something, people are having to scramble. Let me flip to page 4, because your documentation was so on point. So what do you think, which documentation or what documentation that you had mattered most in your case?
So and I'm just going off of what my attorney, how she prioritized the case. The email, when I stated that I would not follow the curriculum as written, because I had 40 plus emergent bilingual students in my classroom, was stating that I'm not going to do that because of those students and the law. And that was made clear throughout all of the emails. And what I want the audience to know is I was only at work for 7 days.
Yes.
So in 7 days, and Ellen Spalding, because I know you're watching this,
hey girl,
said that there were 12 emails in 7 days. That's insane. Yeah. There were 12, and that's the 12 that we entered as exhibits. It was more than that. Because documentation, it's not, I mean, winning is not about what you say, it's about what you can prove. And those emails were important, first of all, because they wasn't in text message. So stop using your phone. I don't know how many times I have to tell you all that. They were on the email system, because what y'all don't understand, and you're watching Law and Order and all these other shows, you need to pay attention to some of the language they're using. Discovery, that means that the district has to hand over everything that they have pertaining emails. So those emails, where do you think they come from? Off the email system. Yeah. And if you haven't sent any, you don't have any discovery. So when your union people or your representatives are telling you to email these people, please listen to them, because it's your attorney. Gianna is an excellent attorney. She is amazing. She's excellent, but she can only present what I give her. And people, like to ask, well, how did you win? Because my case was proven by the time they came and got me on day 7, my case was already proven. Because it started when I realized I was going to have to fight, and I started quoting law, not feeling. Because it's not about your feeling. It's about the policy and law. and every email had reference to policy or law.
Yeah.
So that's why when you hear me talk in my speeches or anything, this was about breaking the law and them forcing me to. And then on top of that, I backdoored with what? Special ed complaints. You can't be afraid to put your name on things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think TEA cares, and it's a reason why when you get that you file a complaint with the state, they send it to the district and you get it. All parties get it.
Yeah.
Mike Miles got my complaint.
Yeah.
They have it like that because they don't want you to file it. But I didn't care.
Yeah.
Because you weren't going to make me break any laws.
So how do you think the documentation shifted the power in your case? Because a lot of teachers move off of emotion and not the receipts and not the paperwork. So how do you feel like the documentation shifted the power in your case?
So in my case, HISD didn't have anything. They were making up things that they could not prove. So the first thing, which most people know, they were like, "Oh, she left campus without telling anybody." Oh, okay. Well, here's the email. Mm-hmm. So, like, come on now. I've been teaching 26 years.
It was some ridiculousness that was stated in the hearing. And one of the emails of one of the write-ups that you got from, I want to say it was Mr. Hurd. If I'm wrong, please correct me. You were sitting down tying your shoe.
Yeah.
And so we're in the hearing, and I'm like, are we really talking about this? Are we really talking? They mentioned you sitting down tying your shoe. They mentioned you taking your babies. And mind you, you teach babies.
Yeah.
You taking your babies to the restroom, and it was not a scheduled restroom break. Because we as educators know, if you've ever taught the littles, and I've taught the littles, and maybe I got away from the littles so fast. But if one of them asked to go to the restroom, and then another one, and then another one, you know what? Come on, baby. We all finna just go take a field trip to the restroom, right? That's just common educator. That's just what we do. Another thing you got, this one was so crazy to me. You were out the first day of school because you had COVID.
No, I had jury duty.
Oh, jury duty. That's right, jury duty. COVID was another situation. You had jury duty that day. So when you got back to work, instead of working on your day 2 plans, you went back to your day 1 plans because I'm their teacher. I need them to know me. I'm going to teach them this material so that it comes from me and not a sub. And you got a ding for that. And all of this was them trying to say that you were out of compliance. You were not following policy. You were not following procedures. And I'm sitting there listening, and I'm like, dang, my district ain't that bad after all. This is foolishness. I could not believe this is the ammunition they had to go against this big old binder that we're sitting here. The ammunition that you had, it was a clown show.
It was because they were grasping at straws. But you know,
it was clown.
When you're getting shot at, figuratively speaking,
right,
you have to constantly fight. And I knew when they removed Ms. Darden, because Ms. Darden testified in my hearing, and they did not want her to. As a matter of fact, Ellen Spalding, the district's counsel, they filed motions to stop Jessica Naaman and Ms. Darden from testifying.
Who both had powerful testimony, so I could understand why they didn't want them there. So do you think, I think this is a crazy question to ask, but I have to ask it for the record. Do you think that the district expected you to fight back like this as far as filing a federal lawsuit against them? I know they expect a fight out of you. They couldn't expect that you were going to go away and just let that ride. But do you think they expected this?
I don't think they expected it so soon. And I don't think they expected it from 2 different attorneys. Now, mine, you all probably haven't been paying attention, but Ellen Spalding has been representing the district in every matter that concerns me. Now, you have to know who Ellen Spalding is. She's a partner at her firm, not an attorney.
Come on.
They have one of the partners for me. And she's the only one that can represent me. But here's the caveat. Now you got two cases.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to make her work on that case and this one?
At
Because one,
power.
right, because she's already dealing with Gianna.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have Mr. Kawaja, and who you're going to get for that. So, and they're going to run parallel to one another. So they have to deal with two different counsels.
Right. So I'm gonna ask a question because we're always pushing union representation or association representation, and with you filing this federal lawsuit, is this something that you're having to come out of your pocket and do, or is this something that is covered through your association or affiliation with the union?
So the federal lawsuit is something that I have to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
But the good thing about federal legislation, you can ask for your attorney fees to be covered. And here's the great thing: your attorney's fees are not a part of the payout, it's separate.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So that's why a lot of attorneys are not shy on taking federal cases, especially if they know they're winnable. My case is one of those. So, at the end of the day, it's just different from the administrative hearing. Gianna is retained by TSTA,
Mm-hmm.
and they're paying for those legal fees.
Yeah. So, what is this situation like? What does this situation expose about how districts operate? We always talk about how grimy school districts are, but it's so crazy having a front row seat to seeing the griminess in action. I am still that hearing was months ago, and I am still just in awe. And I said I don't regret taking a day off of work to sit there because it was something that I felt like I needed to experience. I needed to see in person. And so, what do you think, or how do you feel this has exposed school districts and how they operate?
So one of the things I have been very intentional about, and Gianna has supported me in, is always having open hearing.
Yeah.
I can remember when she first represented me and we won, and the Chronicle wanted the documents from the hearing. And she asked me 3 times. She said, "Are you sure you want to send this?" I was like, "Yeah." She said, "You sure?" "Yeah." Because at the end of the day, I want teachers to know and see what school districts do, and not just teachers, the public.
Yeah.
Because I support public education 100%. I do not support the violation of law and violation of teachers' rights and students' rights for that matter, employees. And that's what school districts have become. They have become these massive organizations that prey on their employees and the students.
Yeah.
It's very few principals that you're going to find in this day and age that are going to do right by their employees.
Right.
It's very few.
Right. So let's talk about accountability. What does this say about accountability in HISD right now? They're on the news every day for something. I literally right before our interview had an interview with another parent who's having an issue with HISD right now. Where is accountability at right now when it comes
There is no accountability. If you're looking for HISD to
Cuddles wants to talk.
I know. I'm about to let her out. If you're looking for the district to hold itself accountable, you're going to be let down, because I see a lot of teachers in our HISD Facebook group talking about, "I did this, I did that." I was like, if you all haven't learned anything from what I've gone through, then at the end of the day, you're not listening or learning at all. You're not listening. So, I tried to make my stuff public so that you all could see, but I still get these same questions about, accountability. There is none. You hold them accountable.
So, what do you think needs to change at a systems level regarding HISD and how things like retaliation are handled?
We need our elected board back.
Mm,
We need it back.
not this board of
We
management.
are in a lawless situation. Everything that's happening at the national level is happening in Houston ISD.
Mm-hmm.
That those federal employees that were retaliated against, like those FBI agents that participated in Donald Trump's investigation, and he turned around. You know, they call it retribution, but it's the same thing. Retaliated against them. Um, it's the same situation.
Wow. So, if you think if HISD could go back and do this differently, what should they have done from the jump? And I don't know if I'm talking about the first time they tried you or this last time they tried you. Let's focus on this last time. What should they have done if they could go back and
The
do things differently?
Yeah, the people underneath Mike Miles should have said no.
Mm,
They were carrying out his vendetta.
yeah.
Those people had nothing against me
Mm,
because they didn't know me too. He had the problem with me.
yeah.
So they were carrying out what he wanted them to do. And they should have said no.
And
Because at the end of the day, they had the consequences.
yeah. And in the hearing, Jessica Naaman was very adamant about you were not allowing people to buy into his his plan, his vision. And you were a naysayer. And his goal was to quiet all naysayers. And she said that basically. He wanted
Yep.
to silence all naysayers. And he needed to get you out of the media because you had such a strong influence on not allowing people to buy into what he was trying to do to the system. And so when people say, oh, influencer this, influencer that, baby, it's a real thing. You had heavy influence and he knew that and he feared your influence. And that is why he wanted to silence you. So do you think that if we could sit down and ask Mike Miles right now, was it worth it? Federal lawsuit. Chris Hurd. I'm sorry, Chris Hurd. I'm calling somebody else's name I went to high school with. I had a crush on. Hey, Chris. Sorry. Mr. Hurd, do you think that it was worth it? The federal lawsuit. Do you think if they could answer that question, would they say it was worth it?
Mr. Hurd, for definitely not,
Yeah.
because at the conclusion of the second day of the hearing, which that was the last day, he said, Miss Williams, I wish you all the best. But my thing is, you should have had that same sentiment on the front end when I was trying to warn you,
Yeah.
and it didn't have to go that way.
His energy on the
Huh?
first day was real nasty.
Huh?
His energy on the first day of the hearing was real nasty.
It was, and I'm talking about the first day when I met him.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, he should have done that. I hold nothing against him.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand because he didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And the only reason, in my opinion, that HISD held on to him because they didn't have any other witnesses.
Yeah.
They didn't have any.
And he was unemployed or under contract, so he had to do what they told him to do anyway.
Yeah, because you have to, any investigations, you have to. They weren't going to let Daniel Gerard or Miss Keonis testify because Keonis is the one that told me not to teach the kids how to read.
Yeah.
So he was it. And Daniel Gerard, he's the retaliation person.
Mm-hmm.
That would have came out if you put him up there as a witness. So they really didn't have any witnesses, and he was it. But I wouldn't have put him up there because
he cut up.
Because I thought he was. He is, and I knew that from the jump because I was like, he doesn't lie well.
No,
we saw him in private. I was like, I wouldn't put him on the stand. If I would rather put my dog up there and bark her way out.
Him on my wig stand. He was awful. He was too emotional. He was not objective. He was terrible, and you could tell he didn't want to be there because he pecked on his computer all day. So in final closing, let me ask you this: what do you want teachers and administrators to take away from this moment with you filing this federal lawsuit against HISD and Mr. Hurd? What do you want teachers and administrators?
So what I would like for teachers and administrators to take away from this lawsuit and both legal action is, first, join a union. Preferably mine, because they're going to stick up for you. You've seen their work with me. Secondly, document. Thirdly, don't be afraid to fight.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, all I have is my name. That is it. And I was not going to ruin my reputation fooling with Mike Miles, because his reputation is horrible. I am not. So you better know who you are and where your integrity lies,
Mm-hmm.
and protect that at all costs. And that's what this is about.
Yeah.
Holding people accountable and protecting my name.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, not to toot my own horn, I'm a great teacher and have been for some time. And just like the hearing officer said, that the evidence in my hearing showed that I was a faithful teacher for many years, to the great benefit of the teachers and the students in Houston ISD.
Literally her exact words in her findings, which they decided to go against anyway. So this has all been crazy watching this play out. I know this is not on our script to talk about, but this is, I feel, I talk to you about this all the time. This was designed. This was all by design. This was destiny, because this is putting you in so many places and spaces and positions to do so much more. And campaigning, you have now, since you've been reliever of your duties, you now have the time and energy to focus on your campaign and your run for representative of House District 121, the 127, I'm sorry,
127.
127. And you're on the campaign trail, you are out and about, you are in the streets, you are in the trenches, talking to the people, working for yourself. And so I love that. And even today, we just kind of briefly talked about this new Senate Bill 571, and just you are working. And I think I need people to understand that you have not let this slow you down. You have not let this defeat you. You are still working for teachers, even though the system did not work in your favor. You are still out working for teachers, trying to get legislation passed to get us in better positions. You are still out in the field. And so, like, you got to admire and respect that about you. You
Yep.
got to. So tell us how we can support your campaign. We just ended early voting in Houston, what, a couple of days ago. So
Yes.
tell us where we are now, how we can support your run for District 127.
So democracy is not free.
Mm.
It's not. And teachers, unfortunately, if you want a voice at the Capitol, and I have been speaking for Houston ISD, now the teachers in Humble and Spring ISD, it costs to run a campaign. And we're talking about a collective cost. We're asking for $12.70 for 100 for the district 127, 1270. That's what we're asking for teachers to donate to my campaign. If you would like to be a reoccurring contributor, it takes $80 for the 6 months that I need the 1270 to help fund my campaign. So it will be from now into November. So 1270 a month is $80, and to help me get to Austin. The numbers are in my favor. We are slated to flip this district, and I'll be in Austin in January for the 90th legislative session. And it's a historical moment. And if you want to be a part of history, then I am asking you to contribute to my campaign. Even if you're not a teacher, you can do that as well. Um, we are looking to make teacher working conditions and all the things that I have faced and dealt with in the 26 years of my career. We're going to bring it to Austin, and that's where the fight is. But unfortunately, it takes money and donations to get me there.
Yeah. And I am going to, I know you're going to pop my hand after we get off of this, but I'm going to go ahead and go off the record and say this. There are so many of you who are filling Michelle's inbox on social media daily, needing help asking her for help, asking her to read your 4-page letter emails and complaints and help you respond to principals' emails and file grievances. And you are the main ones that need to be donating $12.70. I said it because it's not free. Okay, it's not free. Well, hey, keep us posted on this federal lawsuit. You are my shero. You know, you are everything I aspire to be. I want to one day give a certain district hell like you have been given HISD hell. And I hope to get a lot of other teachers on the bandwagon to step out and stop being afraid to do what's right for kids and do what's right for us in the education system. And so I appreciate you for being here again, and
Thank you.
keep us posted on what happens next.
Will do.
All right, we'll talk to you later.